Karen's return to Sunset Hills 3 days later was nothing short of triumphant. She'd upgraded her usual clipboard to a full binder, armed with medical documentation, insurance forms, and a carefully crafted presentation on pool safety protocols. The fact that she was walking perfectly fine was, she explained to concerned neighbors, thanks to aggressive pain management and her own remarkable resilience. "I'm not fully recovered," she announced at the emergency HOA board meeting she'd called, "but I couldn't let this incident go unaddressed. What happened to me could happen to anyone." The community room was packed. Jenny sat in the back, still looking guilty despite reassurances from other residents. The teenage lifeguard had been quietly terminated, which Karen publicly called a necessary first step. Margaret Brewster called the meeting to order with obvious reluctance. "Karen, we're all glad you're okay, but don't you think you should be resting?" "There's no rest for the vigilant," Karen replied, clicking to her first PowerPoint slide. "According to my research, slip and fall accidents account for over 35% of all community pool injuries. Our current safety protocols are clearly inadequate." She launched into her presentation with practiced authority, detailing everything from non-slip coating requirements to enhanced lifeguard training. The audience listened with a mixture of respect and exhaustion. Classic Karen, turning a personal incident into a community crusade. "In conclusion," she said, reaching her final slide, "I'm recommending a complete overhaul of our pool safety measures, including installing additional cameras for better monitoring of rule violations that lead to unsafe conditions." That's when Margaret's phone buzzed, then board member Tom Fletcher's phone, then 3 more phones around the room. "Excuse me," Margaret said, standing abruptly. "I need to take this call." She stepped into the hallway, and Karen could hear urgent whispers. A few minutes later, Margaret returned with Tom and another board member, their faces grim. "Karen," Margaret said carefully, "we need to discuss something with you privately." "Whatever you have to say can be said in front of the community," Karen replied, her confidence unwavering. Margaret exchanged glances with Tom. "Very well. We've just received a call from our insurance company. They completed their investigation of your claim." "Excellent. I assume they'll be approving the settlement we discussed?" "Actually, no." Margaret pulled out her phone and held it up. "They've reviewed the security footage from the pool area. All of it." Karen's stomach dropped, but she kept her expression neutral. "I don't understand what you're implying. The footage shows you slipping, yes, but it also shows you making a deliberate choice to fall backward into the pool instead of regaining your balance." Margaret's voice was steady but firm. "The insurance company is calling it attempted fraud." The room went completely silent. Karen could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. That's impossible," she stammered. "I was injured. I have medical documentation." "Documentation of subjective complaints that couldn't be verified," Tom added. Dr. Rodriguez at Memorial Hospital was quite clear about that when the insurance investigator spoke with him. Jenny stood up in the back row, her face a mixture of anger and relief. "You mean she faked the whole thing?" The chaos that followed was exactly what Karen had orchestrated. The new resident, Jenny, immediately dove deeper into the pool to help, her earlier frustration replaced by genuine concern. The teenage lifeguard blew his whistle and jumped in. His summer job suddenly turned into a medical emergency. "Don't move her," Jenny shouted to the lifeguard. "If it's a spinal injury, we need to keep her still." Karen allowed herself to be carefully supported in the water, her eyes squeezed shut in theatrical pain. Inside, she was calculating every angle. The woman's speaker was still playing soft jazz, perfect evidence of the violation that led to this accident. The wet concrete would show she'd clearly slipped due to unsafe conditions that could have been prevented if residents followed pool rules properly. "Call 911, the lifeguard yelled, fumbling for his phone with wet hands. "No," Karen gasped, opening her eyes just enough to see their worried faces. "I mean, maybe it's not that bad. Let me just—" "Oh," she let out another groan. "Actually, yes. Call them. This is definitely serious." Within minutes, the pool area was swarming with paramedics, HOA board members, and curious residents. Karen's husband Bill arrived looking genuinely panicked, his work clothes disheveled from rushing over. "Honey, what happened?" He knelt beside the pool as the paramedics prepared to extract her. I was just trying to address a noise violation," Karen whispered, her voice trembling perfectly. "The concrete was wet, and I slipped. I think I heard something crack." Jenny stood nearby, dripping wet and wringing her hands. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Whitmore. If I hadn't been playing music, you wouldn't have needed to come over here." Karen managed a weak smile. "It's not your fault, dear. I was just doing my job." Hillville President Margaret Brewster arrived as the paramedics were loading Karen onto a back ward. "What exactly happened here?" she demanded, her usual composure cracking. "Slip and fall," one of the paramedics explained. "Possible spinal injury. We're taking her to Memorial Hospital for imaging." As they wheeled her away, Karen caught sight of the security camera again. A small flutter of anxiety passed through her chest, but she pushed it down. Security footage would show exactly what everyone had witnessed: a dedicated HOA volunteer injured while trying to maintain community standards. At the hospital, Karen played her part flawlessly. She described excruciating pain that mysteriously seemed to shift locations depending on which test the doctors wanted to run. That MRI showed nothing conclusive, which she explained as soft tissue damage that doesn't always show up on scans. Dr. Rodriguez, the attending physician, looked skeptical. "Mrs. Whitmore, your reflexes are normal, and you have full sensation in your extremities. Are you sure you can't feel this?" He pressed on her lower back. Karen gasped dramatically. "I feel it, but it's wrong. Everything feels wrong." "We'll keep you overnight for observation," he said finally. "But honestly, I think you're going to be fine." That evening, as Karen lay in her hospital bed, she began crafting her strategy. She'd file a claim with the HOA's insurance company, citing inadequate pool safety measures. She'd demand a review of the lifeguards' protocols. Maybe she'd even suggest that new residents should be required to take a comprehensive rules seminar before accessing amenities. Bill sat beside her bed, holding her hand. "I'm just glad you're okay," he said softly. "When I got that call, I thought." For a moment, Karen felt a pang of guilt. Bill had been nothing but supportive through their 23 years of marriage, even when her HOA activities consumed their evenings and weekends. But this was bigger than their relationship. This was about justice. "I'm going to be fine," she assured him. "But Bill, we can't let this slide. The pool area is clearly unsafe, and if it happened to me, it could happen to anyone." "Of course, honey. Whatever you need." As he left for the night, Karen pulled out her phone and began documenting everything: photos of her injuries, detailed notes about the incident, and a preliminary letter to the HOA board demanding action. She was so absorbed in her planning that she didn't notice the security guard who'd been quietly reviewing footage in the hospital's main office. The same security guard who'd been asked by the police to pull the pool cameras as part of their routine incident report. Karen Whitmore's designer sunglasses slipped down her nose as she surveyed the Sunset Hills community pool like a general inspecting her troops. The Tuesday morning crowd was predictably sparse, just how she liked it when conducting her unofficial wellness checks on HOA compliance. "Excuse me," she called out to a teenage lifeguard who was adjusting pool chemicals. "Those pH strips should be tested every 2 hours, not whenever you feel like it." The boy looked up confused. "Ma'am, I just tested them 20 minutes ago. The log's right here." "Don't mind me. I'm Karen Whitmore, HOA Board Vice President, and I've been monitoring this pool's operations for 3 years. She clicked her acrylic nails against her clipboard. "The residents of Sunset Hills deserve better than your cavalier attitude toward chemical safety." As she pivoted dramatically to make her point, Karen's eyes caught something that made her blood boil. A woman in her 30s was setting up a small speaker near the shallow end, soft music beginning to drift across the water. "Absolutely not." Karen marched over, her flip-flops slapping against the wet concrete with authoritative precision. Section 4.2 of the pool regulations clearly states no personal audio devices during designated quiet hours. The woman looked up from her pool float, genuinely puzzled. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize there were quiet hours. What time do they end? Karen's lip curled. Another clueless resident who hadn't bothered to read the 47-page amenities handbook. Quiet hours are from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on weekdays. It's 9:47 a.m. You have 13 minutes. That's oddly specific, the woman said with a nervous laugh. Look, I can just turn it off now. The damage is already done. I'll need to file a formal complaint. Karen pulled out her phone, thumb hovering over the camera app. Name and unit number, please. The woman's face flushed. This is ridiculous. It's barely audible. There's literally no one else here except that lifeguard. The rules exist for a reason. Karen's voice echoed off the pool deck. If we let everyone slide on minor infractions, where does it end? Chaos, that's where. She stepped closer to the pool's edge, her righteous indignation building. Do you know what happens to property values when HOA standards slip? Do you have any idea how hard I work to maintain the quality of life in this community? The woman stood up in the shallow water, clearly frustrated. Look, Karen. Mrs. Whitmore to you. Mrs. Whitmore, I'll turn off the music. I just moved in last month, and I'm still learning all the rules. Can we please just... Karen held up her hand like a traffic cop. New resident excuse is noted but not accepted. Ignorance of the law is not a defense. She took another step closer, her voice rising. I've seen your type before. You move into a nice community like this thinking you can just do whatever you want. Well, not on my watch. As she gestured emphatically, Karen's foot caught a small puddle of pool water. She felt herself slipping, her arms windmilling as she tried to regain balance. In that split second, she saw the woman's shocked expression, the lifeguard rushing over, and the security camera mounted on the nearby light pole. And then she made a decision that would change everything. Instead of accepting the embarrassing but harmless tumble, Karen let herself fall backward into the pool with an Oscar-worthy scream of agony. The water was only 4 feet deep, but she went down like she'd been struck by lightning, clutching her back and wailing. My spine! Oh God, my spine! She shrieked, floating dramatically. I can't feel my legs. Karen's carefully constructed world began crashing down around her. This is ridiculous. I've served this community faithfully for years. I would never. The footage is very clear, Karen, Margaret interrupted. You can appeal the insurance company's decision if you want, but they're also considering filing charges for fraud. The weight of the room's stairs pressed down on Karen like a physical force. Some residents looked shocked, others angry, and a few, including Jenny, looked almost sympathetic. I think, Karen said slowly, her voice barely above a whisper, I need to speak with my attorney. As she gathered her presentation materials with shaking hands, Karen caught sight of the security camera mounted in the corner of the community room. For the first time in years, she wondered who else might be watching her every move. The meeting dissolved into chaos as she left, but Karen didn't look back. She had bigger problems now than pool safety protocols. Walking to her car, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The insurance investigation was one thing, but what else might they find if they started looking deeper into her HOA activities? What other shortcuts had she taken in her pursuit of community perfection? And somewhere in the back of her mind, a more troubling question emerged. If she'd been wrong about this, what else had she been wrong about? As she drove home, Karen's phone buzzed with text messages from neighbors, board members, and friends. She didn't look at any of them. For the first time in years, she wasn't sure she wanted to know what people in her community were saying about her. The security camera footage had caught more than just her fake fall. It had captured the moment when Karen Whitmore's perfect world began to crack.